Hello and welcome back to the Karma Stories podcast. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today I have 3 stories for you from the Malicious Compliance subreddit. The Karma Stories podcast is published to all major podcasting platforms, and you can also read along on YouTube under our @Karma Stories podcast handle. If you have a story you'd like to submit to the podcast, you can do so by email at karmastoriespod@gmail.com. Alright, on to today's compliance stories. Let's jump right in. This story comes to us from Michiga Kerr. Hospital expansion causes parking problems. A post in Am I the Butthole reminded me of this story. Thought you all might like it. Back in the 90s, I worked at the Family Engine Shop downtown. It was an L-shaped building with a backlot that was separated from the street by a brick wall topped with a wrought iron fence. The only access to it was through the shop. On the other side of the building, we had a 20-spot lot that was completely open. The shop was about 3 small blocks from the local hospital. The hospital decided to remodel and expand, but since they were landlocked at the time, the only place they had to build was their parking garage and lots. So they immediately changed their policy to only emergency room parking on site. They bought or rented several lots around the city and ran a bus, maybe buses, to get everyone to and from the hospital. From what I gathered, the staff lot was the furthest away, and the bus stopped at every lot on its route, adding quite some time to the staff's commute. They got very strict that there was no staff parking for any reason in any lot other than the staff lot. This included visiting doctors or specialists, whatever. It wasn't long before our parking lot started filling, as we were the closest business with an open lot. At first, we simply had any car with a hospital sticker towed. About 2 weeks after that, we would start getting keys in the drop box with notes like, "Makes funny noise when turning right, have ready by 2 p.m. We would take the car around the block for a test drive and write some notes if we noticed anything. Of course, they never wanted to fix whatever the issue was if we actually found something. My uncle quickly got tired of these shenanigans and had a glorious solution. Use the back lot to store these new customer vehicles. He would have me move the cars into the back behind the customer and shop vehicles right next to the fence, so the customer could clearly see their vehicles. He then charged for a day's storage, and for every car we had to move to get the hospital staff's car in and out. I don't know exactly what he charged, but probably around $100 total for the day. Not only that, but it would take me 40 minutes to an hour to move everything around just to get one of these vehicles out. Of course, the hospital staff would yell and complain over the price and how long it took me to get their vehicles. My uncle would just smile, and if they didn't want to pay, tell me to move slower. Take extra care of this important customer's car, he'd say, while he set up the paperwork to place a mechanic's lien on the vehicle. It didn't take long for the issue to reduce from a full lot to maybe one when we got to the shop in the morning. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called MegC18. It says, "There's a lot like that near our hospital. For £5 you can park there for the day. As this is cheaper than the hospital parking area, it's always full. He must be making a couple of £100 a day. Your uncle could have been rich." OP responded and said, "Yeah, uncle wasn't hurting for money. It was more about wasting our time on things they never planned on having repaired. Don't get me wrong, if someone was to have their vehicle repaired, he was happy to do it and would waive the storage fee, even if it wasn't our usual type of work." Does anybody else here think that OP's uncle should have started charging a diagnostic fee for everybody who brought in a vehicle and put the keys into their Dropbox just to park there for the day? I do agree with the commenter though that OP's uncle could have been charging for parking in that lot, and they probably still would have paid it if it was cheaper than parking in the hospital lot themselves, or if it saved them a lot of time over taking the bus into work. This story comes to us from Office Drone 74. They wanted all suggestions on paper. We gave them enough to drown the office. Okay, so this happened a while back, but I just can't forget it because it was one of those moments where our entire office basically went, "Oh, you wanted everything your way? Sure, we'll give you exactly that." It's not the most dramatic story ever, but it's the kind of annoying, everyday nonsense that, when turned on its head, becomes hilarious and weirdly satisfying. We worked in this mid-sized billing department, open plan office, crappy coffee machine that never quite brewed anything that didn't taste like burnt cardboard, and a manager, Marisol, who was forever convinced that what we really needed was more process, not better communication, not a tiny budget increase to fix our ancient printer. No, she believed if we just had enough rules and steps and forms, everything would be perfect. She wasn't evil, just the kind of person who lives for efficiency frameworks and structured improvement pipelines, if you know what I mean. So one morning, I'm standing by the coffee machine trying to decide if I dare drink whatever sludge is dripping out, and I hear Marisol clearing her throat at the other end of the room. Everyone sort of drifts over because these announcements usually mean some new rule. She's got this big smile plastered on her face like she's about to give us a gift, but we all know better. From now on, she says, if you have any suggestion, any idea at all for improving workflow, speeding up invoicing, cutting costs, you must submit it in writing formally. No more of these off-the-cuff chats or quick hallway suggestions. She thinks this will ensure no idea gets lost. I'm just thinking, oh great, more paperwork. Like we need to write a frickin' dissertation to say, hey, can we fix the printer? It jams twice a day. I look at my coworker Jen, who's always got these little improvements, like changing where we store envelopes or tweaking a filing shortcut, and she looks back at me with an expression that basically says, we're screwed. Normally, if you see something that needs fixing, you just mention it in passing and boom, done. Now, we'll have to fill out forms or write official memos, and who's got time for that? But I try to be fair. Maybe Marisol truly wants to track ideas properly. Maybe it'll help get some decent improvements through. So over the next few days, a few of us submit genuine proposals, like the printer's jam for the millionth time, someone asks for a better roller kit, someone else suggests reorganizing digital files so invoices don't vanish into subfolder hell. I propose this small tweak to batch certain tasks instead of switching back and forth all day. Marisol's responses come back in this super formal tone, always asking for more data, or a cost-benefit analysis, or telling us to wait until the next quarter's budget. Every single suggestion gets dragged into this endless limbo. It's frustrating because we're trying to help, and she's effectively saying no without saying no, just burying us in requests for more detail. It feels like applying for a grant from a government agency that never wanted to give you money in the first place. After about a week of this nonsense, people just stop bothering with legit suggestions. Why waste time writing a 2-page memo to fix a small problem if you know she'll ask for a 5-page follow-up? Around the break room, I catch whispers. Jen and Miguel joking about how if Marisol wants every idea in writing, maybe we should give her literally every idea, no matter how trivial. If meaningful proposals get stonewalled, let's fill the system with totally pointless ones. And that's how the malicious compliance started. At first, it's subtle. A proposal to move the stapler 2 inches to the left for ergonomic efficiency, or a suggestion to switch from blue pens to black to maintain brand consistency. Marisol's inbox starts filling up with trivial requests, one after another, all perfectly following her rule. Everything must be written down. I try not to get too involved at first, but I can't help smiling at some of these. It's just so ridiculous. A week ago, we solved problems with a quick chat. Now, we're submitting formal proposals about pen colors, and Marisol can't really complain. She's the one who demanded written suggestions. Meanwhile, productivity is tanking. We spend time drafting or reading this nonsense instead of helping customers or fixing actual issues. The printer still jams because no one's pushing that serious proposal. Why bother, right? If we do, we'll just get need more data again. The whole office starts feeling like it's stuck in molasses, and the irony is thick enough to cut with a knife. We have a new hire, Tara, who joined right before this madness. She comes to me looking confused. She has a genuine improvement idea, something about cross-checking invoices to speed approvals, and she's like, so I just write it down, right? And I'm thinking, poor kid, she has no clue what she walked into. I help her draft a thoughtful, clear proposal. Of course, Marisol replies with, "Please provide historical error rate data before we consider this." Tara looks crushed. Welcome to our world. As the pointless proposals pile up, we hit peak absurdity. Someone suggests a weekly applause schedule to boost morale. Every Tuesday at 2:37 p.m., we clap for 13 seconds. Another wants to label each cubicle with a 10-digit code for inventory purposes. Marisol tries to keep cool, but I see her sighing more, rubbing her forehead. Upper management notices we're behind on billing and sends someone to ask what's going on. Marisol must be dying inside, trying to explain that we're stuck reviewing endless formal suggestions about paperclip orientation and coffee filter thickness. Eventually, Marisol calls another meeting, trying to sound firm, but ending up more desperate. She says, "We need quality suggestions, not quantity, okay?" And someone in the back just goes, "But the rules say every suggestion must be in writing." Everyone else nods. "We're just following orders, boss." Marisol flips through a stack of these absurd proposals in front of us. You can see it in her eyes. She knows she's screwed up. But we don't gloat out loud. We don't have to. The evidence is right there. Her big system meant to ensure order gave us chaos. For a few days, nothing changes. We keep submitting petty stuff. I watch Tara, the new hire, getting more disillusioned by the day. She came in bright-eyed, wanting to make a difference, and now sees how a rigid policy just strangled innovation. Real problems go unsolved, petty ideas flood the pipeline. Exactly what you get when you punish the honest attempts by drowning them in paperwork. Finally, one morning, Marisol emails everyone. Verbal suggestions are allowed again for minor issues. Larger ideas just need a short, simple summary. She's basically undoing the stupid rule, no fanfare, no apology, just a quiet, let's go back to common sense. A few of us glance at each other and grin. The entire office mood lifts. No more pen alignment proposals, no more applause schedules, freedom. Now that we're allowed to talk again, guess what happens? The printer fix suggestion gets implemented practically overnight. We pick a decent coffee brand without writing a memoir about it. Tara finally explains her invoice idea to Marisol face to face, and within a week, we're trying it out. It works fine, saves time, and guess what? No paperwork war was required. Marisol looks a bit humbled now. She doesn't mention the fiasco much, but she's friendlier. When someone has an idea, she actually listens. We've gone from, "Please submit your request in triplicate," to, "Hey, got a second?" again. It's like we rediscovered that talking like human beings is way more efficient than burying each other in forms. The funniest part is how the silly proposals have become inside jokes. Sometimes Miguel leans over and whispers, "Don't forget our Tuesday applause," and we all snicker. Jen might say, "I have a crucial pen color suggestion," and we share a knowing look. The joke reminds us how stupidly overcomplicated things can get if you force everyone to follow a rigid, top-down system. Tara's happier too. She gets that we're not usually this ridiculous. She sees that normally we're a team that just deals with issues on the spot. Now that the policy is back to normal, she can propose small changes verbally, see them considered right away, and feel like she's contributing. That's all anyone wanted. I thought about printing one last fake proposal, something like, "Proposal, let's never do that again," but it's unnecessary. The point's been made. Jumping down to the comment section on this one, we have one from a user called Caffeinated But Tired. It says, "Stories like this make me wonder, do managers who create these rules ever realize they're basically inviting their staff to troll them? If I ever run a team, I'm going to remember your tale and think twice before instituting any policies." OP responded to this one and said, "Exactly. It's like they forget we're real people with a sense of humor. If they assume we'll just roll over and comply quietly, they're in for a surprise. Sometimes the best way to highlight a bad policy is to follow it so literally that it collapses under its own stupidity." Another user down below called Filing Cabinet Fever said, "I love how everyone just collectively went, 'You want everything documented? Fine. Here's a 3-page memo on why the stapler should face north for maximum chi.' Reminds me of when my old manager tried to ban all personal items on desks. Within a week, we had identical corporate knickknacks arranged in perfect cult-like symmetry. OP responded to this one and said, "That's the spirit. It's amazing how quickly folks band together when a rule is so obviously goofy." You know, just once I want to hear a story here where people maliciously complied and then it still all went to crap. All of these stories have good endings like, I maliciously complied and did this, and everything changed and got better. But that's not how things work in the real world. But I guess a story of I maliciously complied and got fired wouldn't be as interesting as these stories are. This story comes to us from No Madness, military oven cleaning in 1971. A half century ago, I was in the Air Force for a spell, and of course, basic training was awful. One of the famous banes of the cadet life is KP or kitchen patrol, being chosen to spend a day doing grunt work in one of the base chow halls. This happened to me, but with a twist. Between casual Vietnam-era chatter and clowning around with fellow KP victims, in what was basically a welcome break from routine, I was managing to have a pretty good time, which drove the sergeant crazy. He would occasionally interrupt to give me a harder job, or separate me from a friend, at last assigning me to the dreaded pots and pans workstation. In Texas summer heat, wielding hot water sprayers and big brushes to scrub greasy cookware involves much sweltering, and within moments, I was soaked with sweat in my heavy cotton fatigues. Of course, I still managed to have fun. How else does one cope? Suddenly, "Roberts, get your butt over here. I have a job for you." "Yes, sir." He opened a small oven that was in desperate need of cleaning. There were deeply baked in spills, black and crusty. "Clean this oven. I want it to shine like that table." He pointed at a stainless work surface nearby and handed me a bucket with a hard abrasive pumice scrubbing block. I got to work, noting that I was starting to scratch the enamel on the door. Sir, you really want it to look shiny like that stainless table? This enamel? Damn it, how many times do I have to tell you, Roberts? You deaf or what? You hippies make me sick. I'm gonna just shut up and do the damn job, will ya? Jesus. He turned and walked away. I got back to work, gradually chewing through the enamel and down to bare steel on the door, detailing around the edges. It was not easy, and there were parts near the hinge that were impossible to reach. Exhausted and sore-muscled, I was just starting on the interior when the civilian chef who ran the kitchen noticed what I was doing. Her voice cut through the cacophony. "Honey, what the hell are you doing to my oven?" In the ensuing moment of frozen silence, you could hear a distant boiling pot and conversation out in the dining hall. I put on my best stupid voice. "Well, ma'am, that sergeant over there told me to make it look like this table here." I pointed. "I'm going to kill him." Moments later, she was towering over the sergeant. All I could hear from him was, "Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I'm so sorry, ma'am. Yes, I understand." He glared over at me, but retreated. I always felt bad about the damage to the oven, but darn, that was worth it. Okay, I absolutely love this one because it ends with the civilian chef just dressing down the sergeant. It really is true that sometimes the best revenge is just following orders to ridiculous extremes and letting the fallout speak for itself. If you enjoy daily Reddit stories, I encourage you to follow and add us to your favorites on whichever podcasting platform you enjoy the most. And if you're watching and listening on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button and drop a like on the video. It really helps us out. I thank you for watching and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.